years, he and his brother Charlie cultivate a wide variety of foods on 10 acres in Waiahole, including 3.5 acres of wetland taro. Paul has been a part of the fight to keep water in streams and for taro cultivation. And he's also just started working with Leidy's Hui, the Hui Ulumea Ai, I should say, to grow backyard and school gardens. No? Did I get that wrong? Kinda. Oh, it's your Hui? Yeah. Okay, well, in any case, we're glad that you're doing it. Okay, so, Paul, perhaps you could start off by telling us what it is like to be a farmer in Hawaii today. What are the problems you've had to confront in the past? What are the problems you're dealing with today? What gives you hope for the future, or what makes you pessimistic about the future? Take it away.
I'm very much a pessimist. But I was just reading Francis Moore Lapé's book, Get a Grip, and there's a quote in there saying, things are far too bad for us to be pessimists. I'm a pessimist in the sense that I don't have a lot of faith in this place. I've been here many, many years, over the years, fighting water battles and things, and it seems like no one ever does anything. They listen, and then but they're thinking about something else while they're listening. It's a really frustrating place to try and get things done, but it seems like, we cannot give up, and things might change. We got a new governor and lieutenant governor, it might be different. But I kind of feel like that the thing that's going to make us change is hunger. And it would be a really good thing if we had like a little 1 week, hiatus in the arrival of the ships, because then we'd really start thinking about it. And that's one of the good things about this issue. Energy is, not nearly as critical. We can all not watch TV, and we probably find that very beneficial. We get to talk to each other and things, tell stories and stuff. But going without food is a little different. So kids come up to our farm, I often ask them, we talk about how little food we've got here on the island. What happens when we do run out? And it's like, what are you going to eat first? Are you going to, and if you got brothers and sisters, and or you guys got dogs and cats, what are you going to eat first, your brother or your dog? And they always say my brother. So, but over the years we've been farming, and we've always moved in the direction of sustainability. We're far from being there, but we're always trying to move there, because we're always thinking, that we could get cut off, easily could get cut off. And what happens in that case? Where do we, and the biggest problem is, where do we get our fertility from? So that's the question we're always dealing with. And luckily, being primarily taro farmers, but we grow a lot of different things, we're stuck in a taro patch with a bunch of people with our heads down. We can't get away from each other. We can talk and we can talk and we can talk. And the same with making poi. We're all around the trough cleaning taro. We do a lot of talking. It's, kind of our therapy is just to talk about and bullshit about stuff. So that's the nature of the farming we do. But taro farming is a good example of how it's what I would call like an endemic form of farming. And all farming should be endemic. It should be endemic to a place. And taro farming especially, because you're all working together, you're using your hands and your feet. You don't need tractors, you don't need fossil fuels very much. You can do it all by hand. In fact, most taro farmers, they'll plant one end of the field while they're harvesting the other, which is a really bad practice. But it means that there's almost no tilling going on. And that was because it's very difficult to get tractors into the mud and stuff like that. Now with four-wheel drive tractors, you can do it. It's a little different. It's also one in which we have an excellent example in ancient Hawaiian practices, because they were, by definition, they were organic farmers, and they were sustainable because they had no outside sources of fertility. So they used organic matter, they stomped it into the mud using human labor, and grew their crops over and over and over again. We don't know a whole lot about really the details of it. We don't know how big their taro was. We don't know how long their fallow periods were. We don't know what quantities of organic matter they put in, whether there was differences between this leaf or that leaf for organic matter. There's a lot we don't know. We're trying to figure it out again. But it's still a very good model for the kind of farming that we're talking about. And am I covering what you want to talk about?
Sure.
I mean, this is an endless subject. You defined it quite well, and you mentioned Hui Ulumea Ai. That's a nonprofit that we started 20-something years ago to restore the old Waiahole Poi Factory building. We rebuilt it, got it going as a community kitchen, as a business incubator, started up a bunch of little businesses in there, making banana bread. The idea was that Waiahole Valley, which was bought by the state in 1977, after a decade or so of a big fight in the valley. That valley got bought by the state, put back, to be preserved for farming, and that the idea was to take the food produced in that valley, the resource, the raw materials, and process it, and add value to it, and keep the business, keep the market, and the business and the jobs all inside the valley, and to create. It's a modern version of the Ahupua'a system, where the food is grown up here, processed here, and sold right here too. Ideally, it's all contained. Ahupua'a now, it's difficult to maintain that system, but I think it's kind of a mental concept. It's sort of an Ahupua'a of the mind, in that where all your resources are on the island, and you make sure that everybody who's farming has access to those resources. Our main fertilizer that we use is fish bone meal. Fish meat bone meal. It's produced at Island Commodities down at Campbell Industrial Park. It's really cheap. So I think it's right now 16 cents a pound. Excellent fertilizer. Back when we used to use chemical fertilizer, we'd throw it in the mud in the taro patch, stop our water in and out, throw the fertilizer. You do that every 2 months. Most farmers started doing it every 1 month for the first 8 months of the crop cycle. But with this fish bone meal, we do it pre-plant, till it in, 40 pounds per 1,000 square feet, really low rate of fertilizer, excellent fertilizer. You get just as big taro, all organic, and it's all made from slaughterhouse and restaurant wastes and things, meat scraps and stuff cooked down. Yes?
So how come, if we have the most fertile ground, why is it that we are not proceeding with growing that?
I think it has to do with land ownership patterns largely. And as Mark was saying earlier about energy, we need some real fundamental changes.
Yeah.
We can't just say, oh, let's preserve a little bit more land here and there. We need to figure out how we can preserve land in perpetuity, so that the big landowners have no idea of even speculating on it. And Waiahole is an interesting model, because in Waiahole the state bought the valley, so the state becomes like the Konahiki of the valley. And in the ancient Hawaiian system, you had your ali'i and your konahiki. Under him was a land manager, and he would manage that land for the benefit of the people, of the maka'ainana. And as long as you farmed your land, it was yours to use. It was a use right. So the wars might come and go, the chief might be killed off, whatever, but the people stayed on the land. They had the right to use it as long as they used it. So in Waiahole, the state stepped in and bought the valley after a big fight. And it took us, 20 years or so to get a long-term lease. We negotiated with them, 55-year lease, renewable. And for us, that's how farming should be. It should be forever. If it's forever, you take care of your soil, you'll build the fertility over time, you'll plant fruit trees. I'm Central Oahu, where all these big farms are now. They're not planting fruit trees because you got 15-year leases. Why plant a fruit tree? Yeah, so that's what we need. We need some way to say that this land is going to be in farming forever. And in Central Oahu, for example, we have 1,500 acre farms, 1,000 acre farms, hundreds of acres. And I always think of it as, if you took that 1,000 acre farm owned by one guy who calls it a family farm, not owned but leased by him, he calls it a family farm because his family runs it, but he's got mostly immigrant workers from Mexico. And you broke it up into 110 acre farms, now you would have some real farming. Mm-hmm. And that farming would be something that you, instead of growing 10 different kinds of crops, watermelons, cucumbers, cantaloupe, whatever, you'd have thousands of different kind of crops of all different ethnic varieties. But the problem is you create a community. Mm-hmm. And communities are hard to evict. And that was the lesson of Waiahole that the big landowners took, was that don't do like they did in Waiahole, because if you allow the farmers to live on their land, you'll never get them off.